Hey guys, Red here, and today we have Xanderflicks with us to talk about the new comic that he is producing coming out. What can you tell us about it?
The Kickstarter has been for my project Cameraman, which is going to be another superhero that I'm kind of introducing to my YouTube channel. So you'll have Bullet Boy and Cameraman, but Cameraman is getting his first comic, and Bullet Boy was just content I was making while I was working on Cameraman stuff.
Cameraman, why don't you talk to us about what Cameraman's plot's going to be and how the first episode, the first comic, without going into too much into spoilers?
Yeah, so Cameraman is a story about a film school graduate who moves to Mythos City, which is kind of the epicenter of pop culture in his world, and he gets hired by a film studio called Immortal Studios as their one and only cameraman. And their first task as a team, assembled by director Lorik, who is a famous director, um, kind of sends this team off to space to film on a real planet, film real people on a real planet, film it and bring it back home as movies to put in theaters. Only people on Earth don't know that these real events that they filmed are just that. They think it's just fiction. But their goal is to make really good movies and hopefully save cinema from the onslaught of AI generated content, because that's all that exists in this time is just AI generated movies, and so they're trying to bring back that excitement to film by filming these movies in space.
How hard has it been to make up all these different worlds and all these different adventures they have to go on just to make them into movies?
I've been working on Cameraman since I created him in 2017, and I think for the longest time I kind of gave that concept a backseat to a lot of other things I wanted to work on. But it wasn't until around like 2020 or 2021 where I kind of revisited the character and thought, I think there's potential here. I just need to find the right avenue. And when I started thinking more about movies and how they're made and what's happening in the film industry, I thought it would be a really interesting idea to kind of insert this character and his story as a way to talk about the film industry and what's happening, but like through the lens of like a Saturday morning action cartoon. Stuff that I really loved growing up, like Ben 10 and Spectacular Spider-Man, and especially like Batman Beyond. So it's been really challenging to kind of find the right pieces that make this whole thing work. And a big part of it was working with the writer that's helped put this issue together with me. His name's Andrew Lehman. He's a very talented, very skilled um, comic book writer, and I just had an absolute blast working on this issue with him. I think that people are really going to enjoy seeing what we ended up putting together in this 47-page issue of the first issue.
So, with this first issue coming out, if this one does well, we're planning on doing more issues, or is this just gonna be a one and done and see how things go?
Yeah, the goal would be to do a bunch more. I've got several issues planned out. Andrew and I have talked about stuff that could happen in the future quite a bit. Again, like since the initial inception of this character, I've had this like idea in my mind of how I wanted his story arc, or one of his story arcs, to kind of like how I wanted it to come to fruition, and it's definitely going to require a build to get there. So, issue one is in the tank. It seems like this is going to be a really exciting start to what I hope is so many issues of celebrating movies through the lens of cameraman. I think there's like so many endless potential um, avenues that you could go with this character, and I'm really excited to explore that with Andrew.
As someone who's worked on the comic and everything else, have you hidden a lot of Easter eggs for people to try to find? Is there any fun ones that you are excited for people to find out about?
That's a great question when it comes to Easter eggs. I haven't actually hid a lot of like Easter eggs in the sense that people that have been watching my YouTube channel might recognize stuff, but if you're fans of the things that I'm fans of, if you're fans of the thing that I'm a fan of, you will probably see a lot of references to those things in the way that they're represented. So, like in this comic, for instance, they are filming a superhero movie. So I'm fitting in as many references to characters in the superhero genre as I can. I'm being vague because I want you guys to see them for yourself, but I think there's a lot of things that you kind of will point out and recognize. Not specific things like Easter eggs, but references, I think, to characters in general.
Has there been anything that you really, really wanted to put in the first comic and just due to time and not sure how to do it, you ended up just pushing it to the next one?
You know, with issue 1, it's really hard to draw the line and decide where to end it. Initially, we were gonna go for a shorter comic. It was gonna be, the traditional 20 to 24 pages. But we kind of ended up deciding, if we want to pack as much as we can, or if we wanna pack all the important information into this first one, into this first issue to kinda get everyone started, get everyone introduced, have you understand what the core of the story is going to be, we're going to need a bit more time to do that with the reader. So we ended up expanding it to 47 pages. And honestly, a dream would be to just make an endless comic where there's just no end, but everything kind of makes sense. But of course, there's plenty of ideas that like I can't wait to get to. That we're not able to get in this issue, but it's enough to build on. It's enough to start with, so that when we get to that point, it'll feel like rewarding that we took our time to get there. If that makes any sense.
It does, at least to me. I can see, well, especially as someone who's made a couple different creations of my own and also publicized them, I can see trying to make it as enjoyable as possible without overwhelming or without underwhelming. Um, is there anything that you've taken an account for with the help of the comic writer who's been there for one more time than you have that you never really considered?
Oh yeah, so many things. I mean, with everyone that I've worked with, I've learned something different from them, especially when it comes to like, when you bring your ideas to somebody and you say, I really want this person's help realizing something, you're kind of trusting that person to help make it happen in the way that you imagine. So that person really brings everything to it, and Andrew has brought 100%, 110% to helping me figure out what the best avenue is for the story, as well as adding some of his own plot points and plot stuff that I think really strengthens the narrative overall. So I think that I've learned a lot from Andrew working beside him, figuring out how he has been able to kind of construct this script in such an efficient way has been really interesting. That was the biggest thing I struggled with coming into writing this story, was where to kind of place the plot points, where to place the critical moments. And Andrew does a flawless job at deciding where those things go and how things should be paced.
That's awesome that you've gotten a partner to be able to do that. Um, have you also, with Easter eggs in mind and references and whatnot, with all the collabs that you've done over the years on your YouTube, is there people that you've paid homages to that people can be on the lookout for?
That's a really good question. No, I don't think I have any in there right now, but I definitely wouldn't say that it's something that you couldn't look out for in the future. I've definitely shared parts of what I've worked on for this comic with the people I've collaborated with in the past. Of course, I'm really excited to share it with them because I'm good buddies with all of them. But yeah, I think that not in this issue. This one's very like self-contained in terms of like references to like my online life, but hopefully down the road there will be some references to stuff like that.
Is there any characters you've had to combine or spread out into other characters that way it works well with the audience and not to overwhelm them?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question because, so like I said, I've been working on this story and trying to break the story, as we say, like for a long time, trying to figure out, okay, what are all the moving pieces? How do I have the right amount of characters for this first story as to, like you said, not overwhelm the reader? And I think that two of the most challenging ones were the stunt twins and figuring out what their place is in the story and how they contribute to the overall plot. Because if you're working with a movie team and cameraman is part of a movie team, you want to have other members of that team that contribute to the movie just as much, if not more, than he does. So the stunt twins are Pyro and Korea. Pyro is obviously head of pyrotechnics, and Korea is head of choreography. So finding the avenues for other members of the team to kind of make their way was a really fun challenge, and obviously added to um, the cast in an interesting way. So finding ways for them to all play off each other was really exciting. But there are more ideas for characters coming down the road. Again, it's just about finding that right balance. And like in this first comic, how do I make sure that like you understand these characters before we move on to other ones, or include them, I should say.
That's understandable, and those are fun names. Um, Without getting into too much spoilers, is there more that you can tell us about the characters um, that has not really been mentioned other places?
Yeah, so if this is out while the Kickstarter's live, you'll be able to see the name and title of the movie that they're filming in universe. So the movie they're filming in universe is called Blue Star, and the the person that becomes Blue Star's name is Parker. He's from another planet, so their naming conventions are a little different. It's very fun to see how that character takes the evolution from um, just kind of your average ordinary guy to hero. And I'm not going to say much about that, but it's been really interesting and a great challenge to have character stories within the narrative of the comic itself. It's very like Inception, story within a story, if that makes sense. So that was another big challenge of this, but I'm excited for people to meet the other character.
Well, I'm sure, and that also sounds like a fun, interesting character to meet. Is it also difficult that you want to make homages and want to make references to your favorite stuff, but you don't want to be so direct that it's kind of like, okay, well, that's not very original?
Yeah, so that's a really good point as well. I think that it is going to be interesting to see where or how people find that this story rides the line. I think that the references that we're making are deliberately on the nose, and I think they are deliberate. They are supposed to be that way on purpose, so that you as the reader, a fan of in this case, the superhero genre, are going to say, I can see why people of this universe watching this movie that they're making would recognize and be familiar and like things about the movie that they're making because I like things about the characters that they're referencing. It's very like meta if you think about it, but it's presented in a tongue in cheek way, I think, to where the story that's happening around those references is completely original. So there's almost no fear in like crossing the line there for me.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad that, with being as fans of so many, you want to take um, inspiration, but you don't want to take too much inspiration. So I'm glad that you've been able to find a line between the two. Is there anything about the upcoming issues that you could tell us to excite us more for what's to happen next, since this Kickstarter is already up and running?
Yeah, so issue one is obviously the big start of this whole adventure, but it's far from all the things that Cam will be able to do with his camera suit. He'll be able to find new upgrades and abilities and things that will kind of help him continue to push the boundaries of what they can achieve with their movies. They'll go to other planets. They will cover other types of genres of film. That's part of what makes future issues so exciting is because this one's a superhero movie, but the next one could be a western or a noir detective movie, or they could be making any type of movie that isn't just superhero. So and trying to figure out where those characters belong in a new story, where they're filming a different type of movie is really exciting. So people could look forward to maybe covering a different type of movie that they like.
With how many genres there is, I'm sure this idea has got a long longevity with it. Kickstarter in mind, has it been surprising with how many people have been willing to donate to your project?
I'm really surprised that people have taken to this character despite not knowing much about him yet. Obviously, with the trailer that I've put out and the video that I've put out as well, there's a lot in there for people to kind of start digging their teeth into. But it doesn't surprise me that with how much work we put into it, that people are seeing that.
Is there been any part of this project that you've learned so much about that going forward you will not be doing as the same way as you did before?
So I can safely say this is my first time working on a comic book, like from start to finish. So, completing one story with the best of my art abilities and like with a full script. And I'm working with not only Andrew as the writer, but I'm working with an editor named Claire. I'm working with a letterer named Nathan. And I'm working with a variant cover artist. There's a lot of people that are kind of putting their hands on this project and kind of helping guide it to where it needs to go. I've learned a lot about working with a team, and because so much of what I do on YouTube is completely by myself. You know, I do a lot. I do the writing, I do the editing, I do the marketing, I do everything. I'm used to kind of controlling every aspect of it. And so when I work on a project where I've brought people in, it's really interesting to see. It presents a challenge in communicating your ideas effectively, and also working with people and letting them put their ideas where they think things are going to be benefited from that. So that's definitely something I'll take into the next issues.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you found a good team that you all work together with. I'm sure it's been a learning curve. I mean, like you mentioned, going from working by yourself to allowing others to work with you and to learn to bounce off and adapt to a different situation that you've not really been used to before.
Yeah, this has been a huge step up for me in terms of, working with higher profile people that have worked on real comics that are out there on store shelves. Andrew wrote the backup wrote a backup in the series Radiant Black, which I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's a very cool series. It's exciting to be working with people that take comics very seriously, as someone that really wants to make comics. So it legitimizes the entire experience.
All right. Well, if the Kickstarter's already done by now, or is it still almost to the point? Shouldn't it be? It's almost done.
It would be in progress, hopefully, as we're filming this or releasing it.
Okay, but if it's not done, people can still donate to the Kickstarter.
That's right. There are actually these new things that Kickstarter introduced called late pledges, and a few of the rewards on there will be able to come in, I think, after the campaign is done. So
All
if
right.
you've not
Well,
got a comic for yourself, you can still probably get one.
if you do you have anything that you wish to add to the conversation or to advice for others?
Yeah, if you have an idea and you wanna get it out there, I highly recommend you pursue that goal. It might take a long time. It's taken me forever to figure all this stuff out, but I definitely would recommend that you do it and just have fun with it. I think that it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be challenging. You're gonna run into a lot of bumps, but I think as long as you continue to pursue it and you're really passionate about it, I think it'll happen. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for allowing me to talk to you with everything going on and with this project that's coming out. Thank you for allowing me to put this video out there and in hopes to hype people up for the new Cameraman series.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Have a wonderful night, Xander. Thank you again.